All right, let's talk about something. You ever feel like you're just spinning your wheels when it comes to personal growth? Like you're putting in all this work, but you're not really changing? Well, we're about to dive into this really powerful metaphor that kind of flips the script on the whole try harder mindset. It's about a much more natural, almost effortless way of becoming the person you actually want to be.
You know what I'm talking about, right? That gap between who you want to be and, well, how you actually live. It's that friction, that tension between the you that you aspire to be, patient, kind, totally calm, and the person who suddenly shows up in rush hour traffic or in a really stressful meeting. It's a universal thing for sure. So yeah, we all feel this gap. And look, the problem for most of us isn't knowing what needs to change. We can see that gap between our intentions and our actions crystal clear. The real mystery, the thing that gets us stuck, is why it just doesn't seem to close.
It's like this. You recognize your own impatience, but only after it's already shown up. You know? It happens in a flash. You snap at somebody, and like a second later you're thinking, that's not me. That's not who I want to be. The recognition always seems to be one step behind. Or maybe it's this. You notice your peace just slipping away. You start the day feeling pretty good, totally centered, but then the emails start piling up. The pressure's on, and you can literally feel that sense of peace just draining out of you, replaced by this wave of anxiety. Right. So, we feel the gap. That's the bottom line. It's that super frustrating space between our best intentions and how we actually react in the moment. But what if the answer isn't to just grit our teeth and try harder to close that gap? What if there's a totally different way to think about this? Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. The source material we're looking at here, it doesn't just talk about this gap. It totally reframes the entire problem with just one word. And that word is fruit. Seriously, just introducing this one word changes the entire conversation we have with ourselves about growth. So here it is, the central passage from the book of Galatians. It says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control." Now, that's a list of qualities. I think pretty much everyone would say, yeah, I want more of that in my life. But the real secret is hiding in how we're supposed to get them. And this is the absolute key. This is not a to-do list. This isn't about waking up in the morning and saying, okay, today I'm going to achieve more patience. No. Fruit is the natural result. It's what shows up on the outside because something much deeper is happening on the inside. So why does this image, this metaphor of fruit, matter so much? Because it tells the truth about what's really happening beneath the surface. It gets at the part of growth that we often totally miss, the stuff that happens where nobody can see the work being done. Okay, look at this. This comparison is everything. Think about it. A tree never strains to produce an apple, right? It doesn't grit its branches and, try really, really hard. The apple just appears. Why? Because the tree is connected to a source of life, the soil, the water, the sun. The growth isn't demanded from the tree. It's revealed as a natural result of that connection. And that really points to something profound here. The idea is that God is way less interested in our quick fixes than in our lasting formation. This whole model of growth is about the long game. It's not about just changing your behavior for a day or two. It's about a slow, deep, and lasting formation of who we are, of our character, over a lifetime. So if we're talking about long-term formation, that leads to this really fascinating thought. Every life bears fruit. I mean, every single one of us is already producing fruit of some kind. Our lives are always growing something. Our habits, our default reactions, that's the evidence. That's the fruit. So the question isn't really if you are growing. We're all growing. The much, much better question is, what kind of life is growing out of you? What are my default reactions and my attitudes really connected to? What's my source? And that really boils down to two fundamental paths, two ways to grow. There's growth that comes from striving and control. That's our default mode, right? Trying to force change just through sheer willpower. And then there's growth that comes from connection, a totally different way of going about it. All right, but hold on, there is one more detail here. And it is so easy to miss, but it might just be the most important piece of the whole puzzle. It's a little nuance in the original language that completely changes how we see this list of qualities. Ready for it? It's one word. The original text talks about the fruit of the Spirit, singular, not the fruits, plural, and that is not a typo. It is an intentional and, frankly, massive clue about how all of this works. See, what that means is that these 9 qualities, love, joy, peace, all of them, they aren't separate things you can just pick and choose from, like you're in the produce aisle. They're all different expressions of one single unified work of formation. You can't really have true patience without love, right? Or real joy without self-control. They all grow together from the exact same root. And that brings us to this, the ultimate contrast. A life driven by our impulses, our self-protection, what the text calls the flesh. It fragments us. It pulls us in a million different directions at once. But a life that's connected to something deeper, to the Spirit, well, that forms us. It makes us whole, an integrated person. So let's land here. What if the most important question we can ask about our own growth isn't about effort at all? What if, instead of asking, how can I try harder to be more patient, we asked a different question entirely? What if we just asked, what am I connected to right now? Because whatever we're connected to, well, that's what's going to grow.